Yes. No, it's funny because when we had that time, so
I talked to somebody else, same symptoms, and they described floating. Nothing else. I know. Yeah, sinuses, like I said, and it's built my child.
oh my God, right? Nobody's that high.
For like 2 years, we were back and saying, 6 feet away from each other. Now we're all again.
I was, she came and told me. Wow, what's your time? Okay.
Wonderful.
And then we'll you do it again. Okay.
Ready? Good, I'm out. Okay, we will call the work session of the Pawtucket School Committee to order at 6 o'clock. Ms. Liss, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Bonello.
Here.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Here.
Ms. Grant?
Ms. Judy. Here. Ms. Rice, will put it.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is public participation. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda is recognition. So we have a recognition today. We have one of our members. We have two of our members who are, well, three of our members are going to be not with us in January and moving on to their next steps. And I think that we are going to wish them all well, but I just want to reflect on that serving, being a public servant is always taking time, your most valuable resource, and dedicating it to making your city better, making education better for the students in this city. And that time comes at a cost to your family who you might be stepping away from, your job, personal time, and deciding to run for office, put yourself out there, and commit to doing that is always an adventure, but also a challenge. And so tonight we recognize two of our members. We hope to recognize a third member on Tuesday who will not be with us in January, but I'm sure will be doing wonderful things for our city. So first we recognize Mr. Roberto Marino. So thank you. And sincere appreciation for your dedication and outstanding service to the Pawtucket School Department and children of the community. Do you want us to fake shake hands again? Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
And second, just in time, because of course we couldn't tell them that we were doing this, we recognize Mr. Larrabee. Serving on the Community Advisory Committee, January 2019 to December 2022.
Thank you.
Having a baby in that time and everything, and still staying dedicated.
Do you guys, the three of you, want to get together?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I gotta hold that thing.
Right, Bill.
Why don't you hold this since it's yours?
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The city of Pawtucket, thank you. Okay, we will move on. Mr. Charbonneau.
Just if I can echo those comments briefly to both Mr. Labby, Mr. Marino. I've certainly enjoyed being on the committee with both of you. I think I've learned from both of you. Two men who are wise beyond their years and have a lot to offer this city for years to come. So congratulations and thank you for your service to the city of Pawtucket.
Okay, well, that's the way we start our meeting. And now we're going to continue it with a presentation from the Special Education Advisory Report. Special Education Advisory Committee, who will be giving a report.
Good evening. Thank you for having me again. Good evening, Superintendent Dr. McWilliams, Chairperson Doobie, and school committee members. Thank you again for having me to discuss our most recent Special Education Advisory Committee meeting. So our last meeting was held on Wednesday, November 16th, here at Jenks Middle School. This meeting consisted of a discussion of the write-in slides serving on local special education advisory committees. I did just bring a copy. We talked about exactly what the Special Education Advisory Committee is, and that it is parents supporting parents, and professionals who are willing to support parents. So, this meeting was exactly what we would want to see RCAC to be. We had valuable conversations with parents. Parents were asking questions. They were expressing strengths that their children were having in programs. They were asking questions. There was one parent that came with specific questions regarding her child's IEP. There was another parent who came with specific questions asking about how her child was going to be serviced if there is distance learning. And we were really able to have valuable conversations with parents, and they were having conversations with each other. So it was great. Another thing we did at that meeting was, and I saw Dr. Gifford here, and she actually supported this idea on make and take. So thank you. We had make and take for parents so that way they could walk around, and we had books that they could make, happy choices versus sad choices. And there were all different pages spread out. And, we talked to parents about, making the books for children that really were more specific to their individual needs. We had charts with voice levels, calming strategies. We had happy choices charts, more charts about, how we solved problems. We had happy choices versus sad choices flashcards. So we just had a lot of materials for parents to share. So it was a great meeting. We really enjoyed it, and we really enjoyed the discussions we had. So again, we're still really looking to get the word out there, spread the word, encourage more parents to attend, because this was really a meeting that, the time went by so quickly because there was so much conversation. So we really enjoyed it. So our next meeting will be on March 22nd, and then we have our final meeting on April 19th.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Vanilla.
Yes,
So I'm glad you're here.
thank you.
I did get a phone call from a mother who ends up being a spokesperson for some of the other parents, but her children are younger.
Mhm.
And she wanted to know if there was a way that you could either record your sessions or Zoom your sessions, because her children are already in bed by 7 o'clock.
Yep.
And if you upset that routine that she's gotten them into. And the other thing is, a lot of what you're bringing to the table, if they start young, then it's going to carry them.
Yes.
But if the parents have to struggle until the students are old enough for
Correct.
them to actually go to a meeting,
Yeah,
then they've missed a lot of what would set them up for stability.
yeah, I agree. We actually have a parent who, she started coming last year when her son was in preschool, and now she's coming in kindergarten, and I just feel like she's going to be such a voice throughout. So another aspect for getting parents of younger children is that they seem to be more dedicated to stay with us and to, she's been coming now for 2 years, so I'm hoping she continues. But I think we could easily Zoom the meetings, send out a Google Meet link. I'm sure you can post a Google Meet link online.
I think they would love that.
And we'd be more than happy to do that. We actually, at one of our open houses, we had, I think it was the Autism Project and the public library both came, and when we had the open house, there was like a table with the committee on the computer. So I definitely think, I can talk to Dr. Andre before the next one, but I know that posting a Google Meet link along with it and then just putting that up would not be difficult to do at all.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah,
And the
thank you
dates
for the
again,
suggestion.
so I
So
can
the
text her.
next date, and feel free to share my email as well. If she'd like to get in touch with me, I'd be more than happy to
Well,
provide
I liked
information.
the things that you were offering at the meeting,
Yeah.
so.
So I know last year what we did for the first spring meeting was we did like information on RICAS and how we will support students during the RICAS assessments. And then at the last meeting, we did the transition meeting. So I think that's what our thoughts are for this one, but it's March 22nd and then April 19th. And we'll definitely ensure that there's a Zoom link for that as well.
Which would be great, and if you, the information that I got showed everything that you were doing, the take homes and things like that.
Yeah.
If you could send that out to all of your students that have IEPs.
Yeah.
And let them know that it's going to be
Yeah.
either Zoomed or a Google link.
Yeah, we'll add that right to it. We'll add that to the posting that we put on the website and everything.
And
Sure.
welcome them that way, and if you ever do takeaways again, maybe you can get some stuff for them to
Yeah.
have at home to do with their kids later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the suggestion. It's a great idea.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. For the shortcut.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda, we're on the back, yes, is approval of previous meeting minutes, 9:29:22, 11:10:22, and 11:15:22. Then a motion to approve all three by Ms. Manolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries 6-0. We will move on to new business discussion action items. Rhode Island Department of Education MOA for 21st Century Technology and Furniture Fund SBA Capital Fund $1.3 million award for CTE Tech STEM. Okay.
So good evening, everyone. Right before the Thanksgiving break holiday, we did receive confirmation that we were receiving 1.3 million as part of RIDE's initiative for 21st Century Learning to be focused on CTE, furniture and fixtures and equipment. So this is actually an MOU to receive the funds. We're in the process, as we just, came right at the Thanksgiving time. There wasn't a lot of time to do a lot of brainstorming. So of course, we're all thinking of ideas of wonderful things we'd like to do, but we'll be setting up, we actually already set up a meeting tomorrow, and we'll be reaching out to the schools to get their input of, what more we can do with these funds. They do have to be spent by June 30th of 2023. And this MOU has to get in ASAP so we can receive the funds, secure those funds, and then our application to actually the way we're going to spend the funds. I believe CFO Melissa, I think that has to be in by December 31st. I think that's the date of the actual. So we'll make sure that we have a plan in place, and we can always come back afterwards and let you know what we're going to, how we're going to use those funds.
Motion approved.
Then a motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau was seconded by Ms. Marino and Ms. Donolo. Any discussion? Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Yes. Mr. Lobby.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is being sent over by our facilities subcommittee that had it on their agenda, SHEA, NEASC letter and immediate repairs. Mr. Charbonneau?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you're aware, the Facilities Committee met to review in part the NEASC letter regarding some of the facility deficiencies at Shea. The committee recommended that I send you a communication, which I did that night, asking that you communicate with the city administration and find out if we have access to the remaining balance of the $220 million bond that was approved back in 18, I guess it was. A couple of concerns or things certainly to be mindful of. One being that if we are to access that money, we have set plans for Shea. In that NEASC letter, all of you have received it, were some pretty big ticket items, and then some things that we could probably action on fairly quickly. But I can't stress the importance enough of the accreditation for Shea being tied to the favorable return visit from the NEASC folks. Like I said, you all are in receipt of that letter. You know the timeline for the return visit. My concern is that if there is a delay in deciding how to proceed and then proceeding, again, those dates for stage 1 submission of February and September become critical. If we miss that February one, we in essence are going to jeopardize the accreditation of one of our high schools at least. And that's, that's something we should be having a very public conversation to ensure that everybody is on the same page and that doesn't happen. And so I had asked for this to be on the agenda tonight just to get an update as to the email I had sent you, and if that meeting has happened or is planned to happen, or the status of it.
Yes, so the meeting is scheduled for Monday at 4:30 with the city, and we'll have financial from the city and from the school department there. And legal as well. I will be looking to articulate exactly what you just said, the importance of looking to use the existing bond, the rationale for using the existing bond, and why the timeline is affected by deciding to look for alternate financial sources. What I can do is, that meeting is on Monday. We can have on Tuesday, which is our next meeting, which is just a short 5 days away. Ms. Liz, can you please put this item, just update on as a discussion action item? So I can, we more than just myself will be in that meeting, but the superintendent, myself, Ms. Devine, Attorney Connolly, we can all weigh in on different elements of that meeting to possibly be taking steps forward, hopefully, from that meeting. And Mr. Charbonneau, I think if there are any other, in the hope of a favorable meeting, if there are any other items that we would want to put on that agenda, please communicate that to Ms. Liss. Okay? Okay.
I would, I would just reiterate my concern, and that of, I believe, of the facilities committee, that timing is critical here. And we'll hear a little bit further down in the agenda on a Baldwin update how RIDE and the SBA, there was kind of a back and forth that occurred over the course of 6 or 7 weeks. So I would, I would encourage that a decision is made on Monday rather than just a meeting to meet.
Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent.
When is the next city council meeting? If they have to bring it before the council.
Mr. Charbonneau?
The $220 million bond has been approved by the voters of the city, by the the council had authorized that to be put out on the ballot. The voters approved it. The money is available based on the votes and the process that's been followed. Our ability to access that money, I think, is the conversation that needs to be had. Because ultimately the city has to pay the debt service on the money and so forth. But, I'm not even sure if that's the case. I'm not sure if the voters approved it, if we still have to, in essence, ask for it. But I believe the city is the bonding authority, so they're the ones who determine whether or not, or in what amounts that bond gets accessed on.
Yes, to be clear, with this committee and the public, so we're referring to the bond that, not the most recent bond that was passed.
Correct.
But the one that was passed a couple years back, 4 years back, I believe.
18.
Yep, 4 years back, that included money for both Shea and Tolman to undergo repairs. Obviously, we moved through stage 1, stage 2 with that in mind. And so as Mr. Charbonneau is saying, there are current approvals at RIDE already to use that money to repair, to upgrade Shea. So if we were to use that money, which has already gone through the stage 1 approval, as we're about to do with these next couple of items, that stage 1 approval, the stage 2 approval, and all of the money and work that goes into those, it would be much more, it would be a better use of money because we already have expended money to go through those processes. But also it would mean that we could begin stage 3, essentially. Correct. So we could just start with stage 3. As we know, with the current school construction project of the new high school, we are in stage 1 now, and we have to go through stage 2. So being able to start right at stage 3 would mean that we could immediately address the facilities concerns at Shea, because 1, there will be students in Shea for the next several years as we look to build a new school. And NEASC has said in that letter that the facilities are not of a standard that they are threatening accreditation. And Mr. Charbonneau, can you list those items?
Off the top of my head, there's some of the bigger ticket items where the HVAC system, the roof condition overall,
And the
auditorium, the electrical infrastructure, the IT infrastructure, windows.
Yeah. So they were big ticket items. And like I said, the idea was that 1, there are still going to be students in the school. 2, we don't want to lose accreditation. But 3, as we talk about our stage 1 for our city, we are thinking about future uses of Shea, and there will maybe be students in that school for quite a long time, and being able to have a building that is ready to accommodate students, I think is a good use of the bond that was earmarked for Shea. So like I said, I just want to make sure that we're clear on all of that, and that will be what I hope to explain to the city as well, on what I will explain to the city on Monday at the meeting, and hopefully we can get started on this ASAP. Okay, the next item is RIDE Stage 1 submission, approval of letter of intent. Is this, I don't know. Oh, hi.
One second to connect. You have the letter here. So as many of you know, Holly Demers is the lead for the Pawtucket School District, on which Holly is recently underwent a medical procedure. So she's not going to be with us for a little while. However, myself and Jared are working on the stage 1 with the rest of the Collier team under Derek Osterman's supervision. The first step of the stage 1 is to submit a letter of intent to RIDE SBA. And what this does is this puts them on notice that they are going to be, that they're basically it puts them on notice that we plan on submitting a stage 1 submission, stage 2 submission. This allows them to get their workforce to plan around it. A stage 1 for a $330 million project is obviously a large stage 1. It's pretty boilerplate. We send these in with all of our stage 1s and stage 2. So it's just very simply, please be advised that the Pawtucket School Department, in conjunction with the City of Pawtucket, intend on submitting a necessity of construction application during the 2023 cycle. They're looking at a stage 1 submission in February 15th and a stage 2 submission no later than September 15th. Again, just this next paragraph talks about just the great leadership that Pawtucket has shown over the last decade in renovating and building 21st century learning environments for students. And then we just thank them for the collaboration as we look to move this forward. In terms of signatures, Dr. Cheryl McWilliams, the superintendent, Ms. Erin Dubey is the chair of the school committee. Mr. Sharber now is chair of the facilities committee, and of course the mayor of Pawtucket are usually the people that sign these letters. Happy to take any questions on this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's been a motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? Ms. Lewis, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vinolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next one is RIDE Stage 2 submission, approval to solicit qualifications, proposals for architectural and engineering services.
This one is me as well. With this group's permission, we would like to go out and solicit stage 2 architectural services. We know we're not even done with the stage 1, but with the aggressive timeline that this project requires, we want to get an architect on board as soon as possible. A project of this magnitude has already attracted several large firms that have not worked in Pawtucket before that are interested in doing a project of this caliber. We have planned to advertise the stage 2 RFQ in the Providence Journal. It will also be picked up by customer relationship software such as Construct Connect, which will get into a much wider audience. But as I've said, because of the public meetings we've already had on this issue, I've already received phone calls from New York and Washington, D.C., and of course, Boston, from some interested firms that are looking to come in on this. The we would ask that this committee then form a technical proposal review, as you've done for other stage 2, made up of members of the school committee or the facilities committee, obviously school department leadership, and anybody else that you might want to involve in that, whether that be the city or teachers or anything like that. So if it's agreeable with this committee, we'll go ahead and get that stage 2 out. It's planned to be advertised tomorrow. And legal counsel has already read through the RFQ and have found no deficiencies with it.
A motion approved by Mr. Larrabee, seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? Mr. Charbonneau.
Chris, just to clarify, this is architectural services for the stage 1 and 2, right? This is not the architectural firm that will end up designing the high school.
No, we specifically put in the RFQ language that basically says this is just for stage 2 services. The district intends that it will go out with the stage 3 RFQ to bring on an architect for the stage 3.
And it may be the same person.
It may
It's
be the
just-
same
right.
person. I think it depends on how the schedule is going and the relationship with the architect that gets this work. What you think of them. But you have the option of continuing with that work or going out to bid for a whole other thing.
Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Listy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vinolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yeah.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next one is approval of revised proposal O'Brien and Sons playground equipment.
Good evening. Before you this evening, we have a revised quote for the O'Brien and Sons playground equipment. This is at the November 15th school committee work session. The school committee approved O'Brien and Sons playground equipment proposal with pricing from the Massachusetts Higher Ed Consortium contract. The original quote was equipment with discounted freight of $282,286.30. No installation. Installation is intended as part of the general contractor's agreement to be determined and recommended at a later date. After a visit with myself, Mrs. Grant, Mrs. Bonolo, and Holly Demers a few weeks back, just before the Thanksgiving holiday. We visited North Providence's new playground, and it truly was a nice site. It's beautifully done. It's smaller in size in comparison to what Pawtucket is doing, but it was a nice playground in a neighborhood setting, a little bit closer to homes than it would be the way the Curvin Elementary School is set up. But anyway, after looking at that playground, and actually Holly was on some of the equipment. One of the things that we discussed while we were there was talking about separating one of the pieces that was part of, it's called a sway fun glider, and it was part of the end of the major construction, the major equipment piece. They felt that that was too crowded and wanted it separate. We had visited Noah's in Massachusetts, Mrs. Grant? No, Fairhaven, right? They had that same piece of equipment, and they had it separate, and it seemed like it was much better. Plus it segregated from the big piece of equipment where, kids could be climbing. Not that it would be any danger. It was just kind of cluttered. So after that discussion, they asked O'Brien if they could separate the piece of equipment, which would add 3 playboards because you need to close in that area where they separate it. And then when you separate the piece of equipment, there's some additional ramping and other things that need to be done when you install a separate piece versus being attached to the larger structure. So that was put in place. And then removing a cycler that had a seat where on one side somebody could sit, and on the other side you could have a wheelchair pull up, a handicapped child could access the same piece of equipment, where both Mrs. Manolo and Mrs. Grant, Holly and myself looked at it. We were able to see that you could actually have a standalone 3-pole pedal and hand pedals for one side, and then on the other side, which would be directly next to it, but it's not 2 separate pieces of equipment. It would be for a wheelchair and have the hand pedals, and then 2 students, one that is handicapped, one that is not handicapped, could be side by side and playing on that structure. With that being said, the revised pricing for this equipment is $301, $534.30. Again, that's from $282, $286.30 to $301, $534.30, and it's $19,248 above the stated charges, which includes all your discount, netting, and shipping cost.
The motion approved by Ms. Manolo and seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion. Mr. Charbonneau.
Melissa, on the installation to be determined at a later date and price?
Correct. So what happens is there was a budget, and usually installation is almost as much as the cost of equipment, but it needs to go out to bid for a general contractor. This company only sells equipment. They don't install it. So with the landscape architect that the school committee approved at the last meeting, and then Holly as the OPM, they'll put together an RFP and go out for a general contractor, which would have to come before the school committee for approval. So the installation is, this O'Brien company is only a sales company of equipment. They do not install. Okay. Actually, and I think they actually are the ones who provided the equipment in North Providence. And I don't know if they did the one in Fairhaven. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that they did.
No, I don't think she did.
Right. I know that they did North Providence, and I think, was it Slater in Pawtucket that they did the Slater Park? O'Brien had worked on another one in Pawtucket. I can't remember the name of it, but it is, they only sell equipment. They do not install.
Okay, but there's going to be coordination where this stuff gets shipped. Somebody's got to be able to receive it.
That's a great question. So we talked about that. So we have it out. So the playground equipment, when they place the order, is actually 25 weeks out. So you're talking like May. And then what we'll do is when we bid the general contractor, we will put inside the RFP that they will be responsible for taking and storing until they install the piece on the property. So
in other words, when that equipment is ready to come in, where we will hope, we definitely need to have the general contractor in place probably by March. So they will have to bid on that, knowing that they're going to have to store playground equipment and take it as they need it from their location, from their storage facility or wherever they store it, to our location, because we have nowhere to put the equipment. We don't have a facility to store it at.
Right, I would just be, I don't think we want to be handling it a bunch of different times. Either
Correct.
unloading it from the manufacturer,
And
loading
then-
it onto
Right.
trucks to go.
Right, so the manufacturer will deliver it directly to wherever the general contractor is gonna
Okay.
store it. And Megan from O'Brien, Playground Equipment has assured us that she will coordinate that and handle that. She's placing the order, she's got it 25 weeks out. She works with these manufacturers all the time, and she said that she will coordinate with the manufacturer to bring it to wherever the general contractor would like it stored, and then she'll coordinate that with us. She's not going to leave us to be after we pay for the equipment.
One last.
Absolutely.
When do we anticipate having that RFP out and the bids back and having the installer lined up?
Right. So, again, we have another meeting scheduled in January. With the holidays, there's the landscape person the landscape architect designer is traveling. A few of us are off some days. We're meeting in January. The goal is to have that on the street by February, and then there's a whole process. They got to have a site visit, and they'll go through that. So we're probably thinking that we'll have it in place, awarded or brought to the school committee for a recommendation at the March meeting.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. You're welcome. Okay, and so none of this has gone before facilities. This has all come right to the school committee, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Charbonneau, okay, just want to check that. Okay. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Finola?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Ms. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. You're welcome. Thank you. The next item is award the purchase and installation of new athletic time clock, Shea High School. Ms. Devine. So unfortunately, Coach couldn't be here this evening. I guess Shea and Tolman are at the Boys Club, correct. So he had come to me a couple of months ago, and he was having lots of problems with the scoreboard. I asked him how old the scoreboard was, and he said that he's been here like 26 or 28 years, and he said that's the scoreboard that was in place. So I doubt that that was installed the day that Dino arrived at Shea. So what's occurring is, so if we assume that it was brand new when he got here at 28 years ago, the scoreboard now is using bulbs. They're burning out quicker. The equipment's old. And we currently have, I think we have custodians maybe getting on lifts to go up there and do the bulbs. We don't always have the company come out because it's, it costs additional money. But back on, I want to say, October 27th meeting, we transferred some money in hopes that we were going to find somebody to bid this. We put the RFP out and we received 0 responses. After doing some research, we ended up finding Scoreboard Enterprises, also part of the Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium. And they actually are the one, I don't know why they didn't submit a bid. I think there was confusion at their company that somebody else handles the sealed proposals, whatever that case may be. They ended up letting us know, and I have the award that they're on that contract. But they submitted a price, and the proposal submitted was for $13,911. Last evening and today, and I apologize that I didn't do this in advance. I should have thought of that. The Scoreboard Enterprises sent me a rendering of the picture of the clock, and it pretty much looks like, your standard gymnasium, high school gymnasium clock, and it's meant to be for the sports of wrestling, basketball, and volleyball. In addition to the big clock, they'll have the shot clocks that you can see on either side of the gym that will go with that. And so I think that all of you have in your packet a copy of the rendering.
And then, let's see, so it's $13,911. That includes the removal of the old and disposal of the old equipment, replace and install the new scoreboard and the shot clocks.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Larrabee, seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion. Ms. Grant and then Mr. Charbonneau.
Melissa, does it state anywhere what the warranty on this is?
Yeah, I believe it was in the back page of the pricing. I think there's a limited.
I don't see it there.
No, it doesn't. I will find that out. I thought it was just a manufacturing.
Because I just want to make sure that if we do go with this,
Mhm.
that if for the warranty to stay in
I thought
effect,
that was in here.
we won't be able to kind of work with it in case we just want to make sure that no one changes bulbs or tries to do.
Right, we'll ensure that we get that in writing. So I will make note of that and communicate back out. I will reach out. If the school committee approves this, I'll reach out to the vendor tomorrow morning and ask him to send me the warranty information. And then we'll be sure that we communicate to the building. Dr. Ash will certainly know that she can communicate out to the staff that nobody can touch it. And usually that's the way. We do that with the copiers when we install them. We let the principals know, please do not let anybody move these copiers. Call me and we'll get somebody out there. So I will get that information for you if this is approved this evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Melissa, just a comment, and the only thing, it says Raiders on it, I'll give
Right.
them that, but that's the only other identifiable, and it's not you, it's not Coach Camp, but this looks like it's just good enough. And that's, I think we could have done something, home of the Raiders, we could have done something to
We
indicate.
certainly can.
Yeah.
We certainly can. It would probably be a little bit more money. I think the intent was, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I think the intent was that may not be the permanent home, but it's going to be a permanent school. And the Raiders will come off. You can take that off and then develop it. So I think if the more art we had on it, it would really be particular to just Shea. So I think that was the thought, but again, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
But I can certainly see if there's a little bit more that we can put in. I know that Raiders colors are blue and white, yeah. So I think that's why they went with the blue, but I think that Coach Camp was trying to keep it simple only because we know that that's temporary space for our students before they go into a new high school. Not that it's just good enough, but that I think was the intent. I can look to see if there's anything additional. If the school committee approves it and you want to say, hey, don't do no more than or go up to, we did move $16,000 and it's 13,900, so there is a little leeway, but it's completely up to you. But I do think that was the intent, because I was like, okay, we need a new scoreboard just in time when we're thinking about, here we are, we got a new high school. Not that isn't going to be used as a gymnasium for other sports. We didn't want to earmark it to be Shea or just Raiders.
Right. Got
And
it.
I did ask today that Raiders can come off and be replaced with something else.
Okay.
Been a motion to approve. It's been seconded. Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Finola?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is award of vendor moving storage of book vending machines.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Pawtucket School Department was actively seeking quotes for moving companies and for storage under MPA 532. To give you a little background information on this, the Pawtucket School Department had purchased vending machines, but book vending machines. And when we talked through Sarah and her people, we were told that, through the specs, they were quite large. They weighed about 650 pounds. Sarah tried to work with the vendor to see if they could deliver them and bring them into the building. They said they only delivered them only. So Chris and myself sat down because I didn't want our people at PSD having to handle these machines at 650 pounds. Some of them have to go up another level or two. So we sat down and got some quotes from a couple of moving companies so that they could actually have them delivered to a storage facility. And then what they would do is from there, they would deliver them to the schools. So it would eliminate us from having to move them. And it would be, I think, once we get them in, it would be 2 schools would get delivered per day. It's 11 machines total. We received 2 proposals or quotes. Chris reached out to, I believe, 5 different companies. We got GMET's moving and storage for $5,000 and Astro moving and storage for $7,105. It's my recommendation to go with GMET's proposal for the sum of $5,000.
Then a motion to approve by Ms. Marino, second by Ms. Grant. Discussion, Ms. Grant.
So from what I understand, we've had one of these delivered to the district already.
Well, I believe it was Varier, and I believe the principal there had already established or already had ordered one before they had.
Right.
Got those, yeah.
So who moved those?
That came in with the company, but they also have a loading dock. So I think it's one level, which I think made it easier for the company to bring it in.
So the company definitely.
I can't 100% because I wasn't part of the move, but I would believe that they brought it in because my guys don't have the equipment for that, or at least a hand truck that could handle that kind of weight, unless they put it on dollies. But I think having the loading dock is what the equalizer was, just going right off of that, which in most of these schools, we don't have that. You have to physically take it off the lift gate and then bring it in and then go up several stairs. And in some cases, like say at golf, you have to go up, I think 2 stairs.
One elementary school that didn't opt in. We sent out a survey for those that wanted it, and one already had a setup in their foyer area for books, so they didn't opt into that vending machine.
I think Ms. Manola wants to know which school.
Oh, I'm sorry, Agnes Little. Agnes Little.
Okay. Anticipated the question. Okay, so there's no further discussion on that. Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vinolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is special needs wish list.
Good evening, Dr. Edwards.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right, so for you today, I'm going to present a update as to where we are with respects to the wish list. Just to give a little bit of background context, we had about 105 educators who responded to our wish list request that was submitted last year. Of those 105 educators, we have approximately 2,500 unique items that were requested. Through conversations, through different funding sources, the school committee decided to utilize the ESSER 3 funds, and in the ESSER 3 funds, there was one of the buckets of money, we approximated about $300,000. So we'll start with that piece. So of the 2,500 unique items, approximately 2,100 items have been ordered, which is equivalent to about $223,000. So that leaves an outstanding about 400 items, which is about 12%. So 88% of the items that the educators have requested have been ordered. So a total of $223,000. Any questions?
Ms. Grant.
What about received? Is that how many?
That is a
have
great
received and
question.
Distributed?
So I do not have that information with me right now. I can certainly look into that exactly. It is a large process that it's been a multi-departmental effort in creating these orders. And part of that process is when those items, whether it's lead times or perhaps due to availability, there are some items that maybe they're requesting a specific color. And what happens is once those items are received at those particular buildings, there's pack and slip procedure that we follow in those policies procedures, and they're submitted. So that's a good question, and we can figure that out I can provide that information in the next meeting.
Yeah, if we could just get the percentage of what's been received.
Sure, of the 88% that have been ordered, absolutely.
I think to be specific, I think I would like to know specifically received and in the classroom, like it's
Okay,
like it's
in their hands.
It's there. Yeah, Ms. Spinola.
What about the 400 items that did not make it to the purchase?
Yep, so it's not that they didn't make it to the purchase, we're still in the process of reviewing those items. It's approximately $78,000, and we are and have full intentions of ordering them. But there's many different factors as to why they haven't been ordered just yet.
But it's within the budget.
Yes, yes, it is. And we have also been insured to Dr. McWilliams that if we do in the event need to go above that 300,000, which right now we don't feel that we need to, but we may. And if we do, we're pretty sure that there'll be additional monies available through those buckets of money.
So, just to clarify, you said this is the ESSER 3 money?
Yes.
So I know, I forget which news channel, but one of them was doing like a follow the COVID cash. Does anyone know which channel?
We actually sent that.
Yeah, so I feel like one of the things that they were saying is like, how is this money being spent? How, and so I think that if this is a very tangible item that people can understand, and so I do think it would be a good thing for the district to make sure that it's getting the word out there that this is one of the ways that through the leadership of the special needs subcommittee chair that we are directing that money. And I think that like I said, I forget which news channel it was, but it was something. Sure, channel 12.
I believe,
that makes sense.
Yes. One of the reporters did reach out to us, and we're still trying to gather all that information to make sure that we report accurately. But he came to us and noted that this is all public information, and he noted that the Pawtucket School Department is spending by far more money than any other district respects for supporting students with special needs. So thank you all for doing so. And this is just one small bucket. Let's think about, not forget about the ADA enhancements, et cetera. Let's put the VMs. There's a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Dr. Andre, can you give me an example, or us an example of one of these 2,100 items that have been ordered? I'm trying to gauge, Mark, if they're unique items, have we ordered one? Have we ordered enough to spread throughout the district of these items, or is everybody going to have one of whatever it is they were looking for?
Good question. So what we did is we wanted to empower the classroom teachers to be able to make their decisions based on their student population. So based on what those students' needs, they put in requests. Basically what happened was I sent out an email last year, and I offered 3 different large providers that are on the purchasing collaborative. Really good stuff, School Specialty, and well, then there's Amazon. And classroom teachers, and that just gave the classroom teachers ideas of where to shop from. And then from there, based on what their needs were. So for examples, Trace and Write Alphabet Centers, colored mold and play sensory stands, light table sensory playstations. There might be some costume stations depending on the age appropriate, therapeutic bands. I mean, there is an endless amount of material, supplemental materials that are in our students' hands right now that teachers can utilize. Light tables, vests. We've ordered occupational therapy, mats, trikes, recumbent bikes, excuse me. The list is almost infinite. I think we could share that.
All right, perfect.
That would be nice.
You would like to, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There is no motion on this, so thank you.
All right, no, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay, and then we'll move on to other non-motion items. The first one is truancy. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any other questions?
No. I'm sorry. I jumped all the way down to the bottom.
You were already going to move us into executive session?
No.
You're going to adjourn.
You know what?
Okay.
No, I got confused. I thought I was just going to say, oh, we forgot truancy, but we haven't even gotten there yet.
Okay. So we are on discussion items, as Ms. Green has pointed out, truancy.
I'll just stop
Yeah.
this and then we'll kick it over to, I know Lisa's working on it and Hirsch working on it. Mrs. Bonola had brought this up and was looking for some data regarding truancy. And at the last meeting, she mentioned she wasn't talking specifically about truancy court cases, but in talking with her, she was looking more about what we would call chronic absenteeism.
And so, so we do have some information regarding that. And yeah, Hirsch, if you want to share
Sure.
out that information.
Good evening, everybody. Just have about 100-slide presentation for you.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
so
No.
I just want to present a little bit about chronic absenteeism and truancy. So as Superintendent was saying, Lisa and I have been working on some data to share with you tonight. And this is about chronic absenteeism and truancy within Pawtucket, which is not just unique to Pawtucket, but it's kind of one of those things that's hot and heavy with all school districts. So I kind of wanted to first give you kind of that definition of chronic absenteeism, because RIDE defines two pieces, absenteeism and truancy, and they define them differently. When we talk about absenteeism, we talk about students who have missed 10% or more of the school year attendance, and that can be for excused as well as unexcused. It can be for any reason. So that's what absenteeism. And so I went back and I looked at data for the last couple of years, and this is 17, 18, 18, 19, and so on. And this is where our students are with regards to absenteeism, just to get a perspective. If you look at that bottom line that's there, that yellow line, I could have taken it up, but I just want to show that was the COVID year where school kind of stopped at some point and the students went there. So you'll see that that one's below. But it's kind of an interesting representation, because the trend and the line is pretty consistent among the schools with as far as absenteeism. And once again, this is students who've missed 10% of their day. So when we talk about 10%, we're not necessarily talking about students who have been enrolled for the whole school year. So if they've only been enrolled for 30 days, that's 3 absences. Would consider them as chronic absentee. And so then I broke down the data a little bit further to look at this. And this is last year compared to this year. And the reason why I'm trying to bring this up is this is something we need to act on and we need to do something about.
And if people can't see what this says at the top, blue is last year.
Correct. Blue is last year.
Red is this year. I don't have one slide.
And red is this year. So as you can see, that's at this point. That was as of the 1st of December, the data. So you can see we're almost at that same point as we were at the end of the school year last year, as in comparison, because students who are chronically absent miss those days. Those numbers aren't going down. They're actually going up. And it's a good point with the data that we see there. A lot of times we think of this data as a high school problem, and it's not really a high school problem. Okay, in the next slide, that's why I kind of included the next slide into here. This is by grade. So when you disaggregate the data and take the data out of like secondary, middle school, elementary school, you'll notice that by grade level, and once again, I didn't want to give you numbers just putting up there, just kind of a visual to say, once again, that yellow line there, that yellow line is the COVID year. So let's take that yellow line out of there. You'll notice that among the grade levels themselves, they're pretty consistent. And what I was finding was there was about 150 per grade level, give or take. So when you compared students that may have been at the ninth grade, it's not that the ninth grade were necessarily more chronically absent than a 7th grader or sometimes even 6th grade students.
I'm just going to jump in and say something.
Sure.
When you're looking at a graph like this is what we are really trying to focus on in all the areas of data, because you're looking at trends. So you're not just looking at something in isolation, but so like he said, if you take out the COVID year, you can see that the trend is pretty consistent. And so, it's a critical need. And I will say, I know you have more slides to present, but I actually had the opportunity to talk to some higher ed people today, and also some other superintendents, and we were talking about this, and it's pretty consistent across the state of Rhode Island. Actually, it's pretty consistent across the nation, but I was really surprised to learn at higher ed that they're seeing, well, I mean, I didn't talk to you personally, but I talked to some other professors, but they're seeing, the same type of thing. So, I think it is important that we have to find other ways of, or, things that we can do to address this because, as you said, the trend is showing it's not going to get better.
Right. The lines there, you can almost see that where they're lining up. That top line that you see there, the orange line, is last year's numbers. And then you'll see the blue line in there, which kind of is low right now. Keep in mind that we're looking at 18%. So that's of students that are enrolled right now at this point.
No, at the higher ed level, as you said, we are seeing an outright crisis with in my class alone, average absenteeism is about 30%, and that's something that before COVID I never saw.
Right.
We would hover around maybe 5 to 10%, but on an average, you're looking at about a third of your class.
And that 30% that you're seeing is pretty much, as I said, when I took those numbers, that's about the 30% that is happening there. So that's with, chronic absenteeism. The other thing that RIDE measures is truancy. So truancy is a little different. What happens with truancy, those are 10 or more unexcused absences. So what happens with truancy, and that's why it's important to try to remediate early, because the data that I'm going to show you right now with 10 or more will change tomorrow and the next month and so forth drastically. Because what happens is there are students in our schools right now who may have 9 unexcused absences. As soon as they hit that 10th, they go to this chart, and that's where they're not, shown on here. So it would be, once again, try not to make this a 100-slide presentation. It would be looking at that data deeper and saying, okay, how many of those students are at that point, right? And identify them and say they're at 8, they're at 7, they're at 6. But as far as truancy, you're going to see kind of the same type of trend here. You're looking at students from that orange line is last year's data, where it surpassed the year before. Once again, the yellow is the COVID year. And then once again, just to show you, it's not just a issue at the high schools and so forth. It's kind of an issue that happens in all grades across the district. That line at the bottom there is the one that I'm kind of cautioning about right now. It looks low because it's this year, but like I said, there could be 100 or 200 kids right there who are at 9 absences, and then tomorrow it's an unexcused, and that trend line will creep up closer.
And once again, I don't know how well everyone's reading this from a distance, but the reason you're seeing that drop off right at the end, while in general the line is looking the other way, is that last one is actually not. It's actually kindergarten.
Correct.
So kindergarten went all the way to the end.
Yes.
So it's not like going up progressively in grade. Kindergarten is at the
end. No, and those are, once again, those are each line. So if you look at that, say the red line or the blue, that line right in the middle, it's kind of like a purplish color. You'll notice that across all of the grades, grade 1, 2, 3, it's almost a flat line, right? It's almost a line that's hovering. It's right underneath the green line that's there. It's almost a line that's going across and making a straight line, showing that the truancy amongst those grades are pretty much consistent. And so I just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of where the data is with chronic absenteeism.
And I apologize if I missed that. What percentage of our students are chronically absent?
Looking about 30%. I mean, I could.
What's the state average?
It varies a little bit between the urbans and the other districts, but I can get that information for you.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to compare. And what was our percentage last year?
Last year it was about the same amount, the 30%. We'd have to look at the one thing that, without going into too much of data, every year we have to look at a little bit with our enrollment numbers. I just kind of took the numbers here of the number of students. So I'd have to do the number of students versus enrollment and get that percentage for you, but I could do that for you.
So,
but it's about that 30%.
Yeah, that number sounds astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole goal is trying to address the problem, because once they reach unfortunately, it's kind of, once they've reached that number, you can't bring it back down. You know, the truancy, for instance, once they reach 10, they're at 10. The chronic absenteeism, if they have 50 days of enrollment, once they reach 5, you're at that number. But if you can then help that student, the more days that they're in school, and if they only stay at 5, then they don't get flagged as chronically absent. And that's what we're trying to do is.
Because if a student misses 2 days in September, they're chronically absent.
Correct.
But if they only miss 2 days in September, by October, they're not chronically absent anymore.
And so on and so on.
So every month, 2 days absent. So if you miss 2 days every month, you're chronically absent.
Like 1 point.
And I mean, you have a student who's out for a week in September because they're sick, they're now chronically absent until the end of November.
Okay, correct. Right. It depends on their enrollment versus, so when we have students come into the district, if a student comes in tomorrow, for instance, that's when their start happens. It doesn't stop back on the first day of school. So that becomes their first day. If the following week they miss a day and they've only been enrolled, for 5 days, well, realistically, they've been absent 20% of their school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Department of Education tracks student attendance on what they call a Department of Education leaderboard, and you can look it up. It's open to the public, and it does indicate percentages across the state. And there are percentages as low as 3.3% in Barrington, trending to be chronically absent, all the way up to 67% chronically absent in another urban, the largest urban, don't want to misrepresent, 63.5% in Providence. Pawtucket, if I look at a very, very quick glance, is in the middle of the pack for most of our schools, with some of our schools in the top 10, and they consider them the leaderboard, with some of our schools in the top 10, identifying Jacqueline Walsh as number 2 in the state with the lowest chronically absent trends, followed by Francis J. Barrier at 6%, and then it goes to Louisville at 11%, and it continues on down.
So you said this is the RIDE leaderboard.
Yeah, leaderboard.
I shared it last year.
And I will say one thing of caution on the leaderboard. It happens to be when districts upload their data.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not always, sometimes it's not always as real time, but it's a good snapshot.
Of where we are in that trend of the
Yeah.
state.
And if I'm correct, they actually note at the bottom if districts haven't reported within the last couple of weeks, and they just take them completely off and say these districts haven't reported, so we actually don't know where they are.
Correct.
So at the very bottom,
In the state of they've excluded print.
yeah.
And that's in what Lisa was just sharing is pretty indicative of what I went back to that chronic absent by school numbers there.
Ms. Vanilla.
So what brought me to this, asking for all this information, was in the beginning, we couldn't locate our students, and we had students who had been out for 10 or more days in the school year, which isn't a very long school year so far. Do we still have any students that we have not located?
So what happens is students. So as students register, and what happens is during the beginning of the school year, we have a lot of students that register for us, or are present with us at the end of last school year. And as the summer goes on, they move and they don't always notify us. So what the schools do is they take attendance in the beginning, notice the kids who are missing, and then those students that have X amount of absences in a row, try to find out where they are so that we can mark them out. And that's a very key thing because that counts towards their accountability in the school. In all honesty, what happens is in the beginning of the school year, when you're counting on all of those students coming in, it takes a bit of time to track those students because, schools open up, classes are getting started and things like, so that's where we believe that, there's help needed there to be able to start looking at those, and try, the quicker you, for a lot of reasons, the quicker you're able to identify which students are coming and they're registered in another district, you want to make sure that you get that cleared up. So your things like your graduation rate is improved, your truancy, chronic absenteeism, teachers aren't getting rosters of students that they know are not going to show up, and they're prepping for classes and things like that for, extra students that aren't going to. So it happens to be an ongoing thing. It's not a one and done, because we also have other students who sometimes register and don't show up. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. So would I stand up here and say 100% that every single one? No, because as other kids register, we have students that sign up for registration and never end up going through the registration process, or then change their mind at the last minute.
So then do you have to find them?
Yes,
So do we have any unfound children?
I would have to check with the schools on that, because I really, don't know myself on the students.
Well, that's kind of what
Yeah,
I'd like to know. If we have students that are in an abyss somewhere,
sure.
I want to know where they are.
Yeah.
I want to know.
So, Ms. Vanel, you mean we have students who are registered and they have never shown up?
Right.
And
Where are
we have checked, and we've been checking if they're registered elsewhere. We're trying to figure out. So this is what you would like to know.
This is what I would
Okay.
like to know, where these children are.
I can. At this point, we have sent Chris Guest out. We've done home visits, and we've located most of the kids. However, we do have petitions in the family court at this point for 65 individuals who have not either A, shown up for school at all this school year, or a portion thereof, which would lead them to the 10% absences. So we have 65 petitions in the court. However, the court is not seeing them as fast as we'd like them to see them. So we keep petitioning them. So we have lots of pending petitions. So active cases at this point. Oh, do you have that report in front of you? Do the math quick? Oh, somebody check that.
I'd rather, I don't know if I have it right, so I'd rather have it right.
6, 7, 14, 22. And then we have some pending. So we're pending 44 cases. Some of them are adult petitions in criminal court, but most of them are juveniles in truancy court. So we're honing in on that. So we can actually get you the specifics, but I think that number is far less than it was when I presented back in September on the first 15 days.
Yeah. So is the caseload that we have, based on our statistics, manageable by one truancy officer?
No.
Okay, so that's something that needs to be put on the agenda, at another agenda, so we need to determine what we can do.
Well, what we can do is, so my recommendation would not be to add a truancy officer because a truancy officer would be dealing mostly with the courts, but to actually have, and what other districts have done, is have attendance officers. So that would support the schools, like Hirsch said, before they get to that truancy stage. So that would be my recommendation. And we did, we are looking at when we go back for our amendment for ESSA and see if that the expectation would be that we have funds in there, to add someone, at least one person. Yes.
Dr. McWilliams, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yep.
I 100% agree with Dr. McWilliams with the fact that Chris is doing a really nice job of filing petitions and finding kids and getting them into court. But when he has to go to court, he gets locked down in court, in the court proceedings, and he's not out there. And as you saw in the slide that Hirsch showed, this is a trend projection. And I would agree that we need to really focus on those lower level grades, whereas the higher level grades, they become personally trauma. Like, I'm not going, right? And so we have a lot of those kinds of things. But for lower grades, we have to develop habits And you can see that these trends by grades are concerning in and of themselves, right? So you start at the first grade, and every one of them is going up. So if we attack it earlier, like Dr. Williams says, with an attendance officer, I think that we have amazing programs in school. We have all these programs to address SEL and voice talent, things like that, they have to get in, right? So if we can get them in at those lower grades, they'll develop the habits. So I agree, and I do apologize. I know Stevie wanted to say.
Mr. Lobby.
Yeah, the question I have is, does each school have an active attendance team?
So as part of their school improvement team, that's one of their goals is attendance. So yes, it's part of school improvement. But do they have a designated team? Mostly it's the school principals, the teachers that are also on the school improvement team, the social worker. All of these folks are participating, and teachers are doing a great job to try to, get their kids in school. But at the end of the day, it takes really an external person that, can keep track of all of these schools, as Lisa said, at the lower levels, and then make those visits with other school staff.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm all done.
Well done.
Can you send that to us?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our next item is Baldwin update. Mr. Charbonneau, are you taking this, or is someone from Colliers taking this, or?
Yeah, I know.
I know this was already from, this went to facilities, I believe.
It is from facilities, and it was just to make the committee aware that we were notified of a potential delay already at Baldwin of 4 months. And it was suggested, and Colliers is going back to some conversations with Sharmet and others to see how we can start chipping away at that delay. But Chris, if you want to add anything, it was more just to notify the committee of.
So as we had a difficult conversation with the facilities committee last week, where we discussed that due to the value management process of trying to get this project to come in as close to budget as possible, as well as Mr. Charbonneau mentioned, our back and forth with Dr. DeSilva at RIDE that took about 7 weeks. We are currently about 4 months behind in the design of the project. I would make a note that the construction is still on schedule. Per the RFP that was issued well over a year ago, what we're trying to avoid is that the work at the job site stops because the design hasn't caught up. And the way that we attempt to recover the design team schedule, is through the use of early release packages. We did these packages out and our RIDE reviews as minimal as possible, we'll be able to keep the construction on track. With that said, we wanted to alert the committee about where we currently are. I did have a meeting with Sharmet, Jonathan Levy and Associate, Toronto Associate, and their subconsultants, the GGD, D'Amico Civil Engineering, and we believe we've already been able to claw back approximately about 4 weeks of that schedule through the release of early release packages, and about how we're really pressuring the architecture team to get on that. However, I do believe that if there's an issue, I should bring it to you as soon as we're really aware of it, as opposed to, about 6 months maybe before school is scheduled to open. So I wanted to make the committee aware of that now, about where we are, and that we're doing everything we can to recover the schedule as we move forward, and we'll continue to update this group, meet with Rod, get packages out, and see how things are.
Ms. Nall.
Cost-wise, as we're putting them out in implemental packages versus doing it all at once.
Well, actually, the way that we, at a construction manager at risk project, as opposed to a traditional design, a general contractor project, we actually already release packages consequentially. The difference is with early release packages is we would generally have a full design completed and then we would release the packages sequentially as the work moves forward. In this case, we're just, as the design gets completed, we're releasing the packages. So there shouldn't be any effect on cost. However, as I mentioned last week, if we are seeing anything positive right now, it's that lead times and pricing is starting to return back to normal. Light gauge metal framing has dipped significantly. Steel lead times used to be almost a year for steel. They're back down to 16 weeks. Pricing is also falling down. Lumber prices are back to pre-pandemic levels. So we're starting to see the needle shift in terms of what were the highest ones possible. And hopefully we'll realize cost savings as we continue to bid out this work. But we're still in a pandemic, so things could still change.
Are there any chances of additional design changes?
Well, that's actually one of the good things about when you early release packages is that because you're setting your footprint with RIDE can't come back to you and say, I want you to build more stuff onto a site because you've already released the package, you've already bid it. The nice thing about the way that we're doing this is that we're just setting the building footprint, the foundations, the underground utilities and things like that. All of the finish work that we discussed in our design development visioning with the teachers over there that we brought before this committee, all that work still has plenty of time to be decided because really the bulk of the work on this project is the stuff that's not seen. It's the underground utilities, it's the steel skeleton, it's the light gauge metal framing, it's the insulation, it's the things that you don't see when you walk into a building. That's really the bulk of the work. The finish work is really the end of the project, and that takes the least amount of time comparing to get the skeleton up or get your underground piping and things like that. So in terms of would this committee have the opportunity to change some of the design elements about the interior of the building? Yes, as long as it doesn't affect the packages that were already released in terms of structural steel and underground piping and things like that. We also were, as we reported last week, we're also able to keep in the 90 parking spaces that the district requested. That was a big point of contention, a conflict with RIDE, and we were able to keep those in at this point.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the update. The next item is also the winter's punch list. Oh, I didn't see you back there.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm here to give a brief update on the Winters punch list. As everybody knows, we opened Winters back at the beginning of September with the exclusion of the gymnasium, the kitchen, the OTPT, and the Unified Arts Room, which then opened and were turned over early October. Shortly thereafter, we started our punch list with the architect, where he goes through the building in every room and notes every deficiency he can possibly find that we need to get the building completed. And then after that punch list was created in October and throughout November, then Gilbane had gone through and fixed or adjusted all of the issues or incomplete aspects of the building. We are still currently working, although work is slowing down a bit. We are probably at about 95% of the punch list complete right now, and I've been told that over Christmas break, we're planning on going at it every day and should be about 98% of the punch list complete. So Winters is very close to being 100%. There are a few outstanding items that they're expecting to go into February break, but everything will stop work-wise until then. They're all issues due to long lead items. For instance, if you drive by, you'll notice there's a temporary shed on the exterior right now. Getting the actual metal and everything for the final shed was delayed due to long lead items. So when that comes in, that gets installed and stuff like that. But I am happy to report that we are, by the end of Christmas break, we should be at around the 98% complete with the building.
Wonderful. Ms. Manal.
There's a temporary railing at the front of the school.
Yes.
The big yellow base. When is that?
So I actually asked them to have that removed the other day. The reason that I had that temporary railing up, and that kind of brings me to one of my other points that I was going to bring up after. So over the past few months, as everybody has gotten settled into the building, I've had a couple of additional requests for some slight changes or additional wish list items. One of them actually was to put a fence up behind the two benches that were there. So I am working on assembling the wish list of items, a detailed description of what each of them would be, the options, and then the possible additional costs that they would incur beyond the project. So that's something that I plan to present to the committee once I get more information.
Well,
But
couldn't you already have 2 fences with the paw prints in them?
tracks off to the side.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a bike rack
yes,
versus.
yeah, we have 2 bike racks right, and it's funny, I've seen.
Well,
I
it'd
think
make a nice fence.
it would. I like the paw print inside of it, and we actually have a bike rack around by door 11 on the parking lot side as well. I've seen 2 bikes in there at once. That's the most that I've seen, unfortunately, but I have seen it get used in that area. I would be hesitant to remove the bike rack and relocate it, only
Well,
because
no, I
it
don't
would-
want you to do that. I was
Yeah.
thinking additional.
Yes, so that's one of those options that has been brought to my attention. So I've gone out to Gilbane and asked her a cost, what it would be to purchase a new and install similar bike rack style exterior fence. I think it would look a little bit more like the fence that we have along Woodbine, but yes, I've asked them for a cost, and I'm working on assembling that. We do have quite a few asks.
Okay.
Just a comment. Jared, I appreciate it, but I would be mindful of collecting too much of an additional wish list. We just spent a lot of money over there.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people involved in the process. So, and we have a lot more work to do throughout the district at other buildings. So I get it that maybe after being in the building for a few months, people are saying, oh, it would have been nice to have this. I would temper expectations as to how much of that, particularly if it comes with a significant cost, how much of that is going to be ultimately approved.
Of course. No, and for me, I agree. I will gather all of the requests and then put them together and send them on to the appropriate parties for approvals, rejections, decisions. I obviously am not the one who makes the decisions. I'm just trying to get all the information I can, but yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Now we can, executive session. Get someone to pick him. School committee may vote to recess the possible executive session in accordance with provisions under Rhode Island general laws. Pursuant to Rhode Island general laws 42-46-5, Job Performance Law Office of William J. Connolly Jr. Pursuant to Rhode Island general laws 42-46-5, security but not limited to the deployment of security personnel or devices, Pawtucket School Department and Pawtucket Police Department MOU for school security measures. Seal executive session minutes, adjourn executive session. Motion to adjourn executive session by Ms. Marino, seconded by Ms. Bonolo, Mr. Larrabee. All those in favor? Aye.
So did I.
Oh, shoot.
It's late for them too, right?
Of course.
Okay. Look at you, ready, she's gonna hang on her thing, she's ready to go play.
Okay, we'll reconvene in open session at 8:04. Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonello? Here. Mr. Charbonneau?
Yeah.
Mr. Larrabee?
Yeah.
Ms. Marino?
Here.
Ms. Doobie?
Here, please report out the report of votes of the 12/8/22 executive session.
The committee voted 6-0 to enter into a 3-year contract with the first year of a $17,000 a month retainer fee for review conducted in years 2 and 3 with the law offices of William J. Conley Jr. The committee voted to approve the Pawtucket Police Department, Pawtucket School Department, MOU, to seal the executive session minutes and to adjourn the executive session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, motion to adjourn by Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Bonello. Ms. Marino, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned as of 8:04.
So Diane,